Hey guys, I'm Hellhound,
Dr. Gutts.
and we're back with another exciting episode of Into the Pit.
Into the Pit.
That's right. And today we're just going to do kind of a general death metal discussion. We're just kind of, him and I, we constantly talk about these things. We talk for hours and hours, and we're just going to kind of film it. Just kind of film ourselves, just kind of talking. And,
Yeah, we were literally just sitting there talking about death metal.
Yeah.
And we were like, why don't we just film this?
Exactly. Like, we had all these topics written down that we're going to get to eventually, but we figured, well, we'll just talk about death metal.
Yeah, we're mulling over a real good discussion, so we thought you guys would enjoy hearing it as well.
Yeah.
And also, something we've been wanting to do. So, in an upcoming video, we want to do a Q&A. So, what we were thinking is, for this video, leave your comments down below and let us know your questions that we will answer in an upcoming video.
Yeah, any questions you might have, whether it's metal related or not, you can ask about other interests. You can ask about our favorite bands, favorite musicians, favorite albums, favorite songs, or anything else.
Literally anything.
Yeah,
our favorite foods, whatever you want to know.
I just don't want to get too personal with it. Like I'm probably not going to tell you my real name or age or location or anything like that.
But yeah, basic things like
not yet,
our hobbies, things like that.
Yeah.
More than willing. We definitely want to do something like that. We think it'd be really cool. Have cool discussions, be it on topic with metal, off topic with comic books, horror, whatever you want to talk about. Let's talk about it. Ask us down below. We will answer it in an upcoming video.
Yeah.
May not be the next one, but very soon.
Yeah, and if we get enough questions, maybe we'll be the next one, or just one down the road.
Absolutely.
But yeah, anyway, we just want to kind of talk about death metal today. We're going to just do a general death metal discussion. We'll talk about some of our favorite death metal artists, favorite albums, songs, musicians, whatever.
Death metal.
Death metal. Probably our favorite. Well, my favorite subgenre of metal is probably thrash, but death metal's very close. It comes very close. And I think that every metal fan, I think they kind of start out. They kind of always crave something heavier, so it's kind of a gradual transition from like thrash to death. I think it kind of happens in the lives of every metal fan. Like eventually, you're going to get into death metal, most likely.
Yeah, it's one of those things you always crave something heavier, crave something a little more brutal.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where death metal becomes the thing that you end up falling for. A lot of times. For me, I know that was the case. I know I got really into things like Children of Bodom and whatnot back in my early days. I got introduced to metal through Slipknot and whatnot.
Same here.
From there, I found Slayer, Children of Bodom, things like that, and then I started finding more death metal things, such as Death.
Yes.
Morbid Angel was an early one that I really got into, and that kind of made the transition for me, where death metal is probably my favorite subgenre, right there with thrash and black metal.
Oh yeah, very cool.
And doom metal. I love doom metal too.
Oh, yeah.
This is about death metal though.
Death
Death metal.
Well,
I love it. I mean, Death is my favorite band of all time. In any genre of anything. I love Death. I've burnt a hole in all of my Death albums. It's
yeah, me too.
Insane.
Well, my death metal story. Long story short, okay, I grew up on classic rock. I listened to stuff like Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Jethro Tull, The Doors, Rush, Led Zeppelin, yada yada, Blue Oyster Cult, Deep Purple, stuff like that. And then when I became a teenager, I started getting into Slipknot, Korn, Mudvayne, System of a Down, Mushroom Head, Godsmack, Disturbed, stuff like that.
That's like the metal transitional drugs, really.
I don't listen to any of the bands anymore. No disrespect when anybody still likes them. It just doesn't really appeal to me as an angst-ridden, angry teenager, not so much as an adult.
Yeah, everyone's taste changed, I guess. And then a lot of us started out that way.
Yeah, and then I always listened to stuff like Black Sabbath and Judas Priest, kind of like when I was listening to classic rock, and then I started just getting into metal, and I wanted stuff heavier and heavier. Then I got into thrash. I kind of went backwards with Metallica. I listened to I kind of went backwards with their albums, listened to the albums that are older and older. I got into thrash, Slayer, Exodus, all that stuff. And then the first introduction to death metal was actually Cannibal Corpse. Oh, yeah. And I feel like Cannibal Corpse is kind of like the Metallica of death metal.
They really are,
yeah. They're probably the most well-known. A lot of times they're probably the first death metal band you'll hear, most likely. And, they're probably as I said, the most well-known. Maybe they've sold the most albums.
I'm pretty sure they've sold the most albums, and they're at Ace Ventura. So that's
they're at Ace Ventura. I'm not going to say they're as mainstream as Metallica or anything like that. I mean, look at their lyrics. I mean,
Their album covers.
Yeah, their album
Definitely
covers.
not very mainstream
Yeah.
at all.
And like that was my first introduction, and I didn't really know what death metal was. I remember just seeing the album, in the record store. Cannibal Corpse, like Eaten Back to Life or Butcher the Birth. I'd listened to the little sample. I was like, wow, this is like nothing I've ever heard. I think at the time, I wasn't really ready for it yet. But like I kept thinking about it, and like I kept thinking about songs like "Shredded Humans" and "Edible Autopsy," and "Buried in the Backyard," or is that what it's called?
Buried in the Backyard.
Buried in the Backyard. Stuff like that. I was like, wow, I couldn't get this band out of my head, so I bought the album. Eaten Back to Life was the first death metal I've ever owned, and then I kind of discovered, kind of the earlier bands like Death, Possessed, who pioneered death metal, and yeah, then I became a death metal fan. I think I wasn't ready at first; it was a little too heavy for me. I was still getting into thrash, but eventually I just had like a craving. I just hungered for death metal, and now obviously I'm a huge death metal fan. So that's kind of the long story short, that's how I became a death metal fanatic.
Oh, yeah. See, I was kind of similar. Like I said, I went from like the Children of Bodom style. Slayer
sadly enough, Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park too.
Yeah, they get you. It gets you.
The gateway bands.
Yeah, it gets
you
there.
bands,
It's a gateway drug to the heavier things of metal. The first death metal that I ever really fell in love with was actually Crystal Mountain by Death. That was the first thing that we heard. Me and a few friends, we used to do this thing where we would just hop on YouTube. We had 3 computers set up, and we would just hop on YouTube and see who could find the coolest songs that were new to us. Obviously, not new music. This was later, like mid 2000s, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I mean, obviously, it wasn't new music, but new to us, right? So I was, flipping through some things, found Crystal Mountain by a band called Death that I had never heard of. I thought the album cover looked pretty cool. Let's check this out, right? Yeah. I pop it on, have my headphones on. About halfway through, I just pause it. I'm just like, guys, you need to hear this. Unplug the headphones, turn the speakers to full blast, and we were all in from there. I think in one night, we listened to every Death album, all 7 Death albums. We listened to all of them, start to finish. Fell in love that night. I remember it like it was yesterday. So good.
When you're first discovering death, it's just like
it's life.
It's an unforgettable experience.
It's an altering process.
I said Cannibal Corpse is most well known, but I feel like Death is they're like the essential death metal band.
The Godfathers.
They're the definitive death metal artist, and it's basically just Chuck Schuldiner and whoever you can find. Andy LaRoque, who's one of my favorite guitarists, was in it from King Diamond. Steve DiGiorgio and Gene Hoglan, which are both virtuosos at what they do. They make up a great rhythm section. I think they're both in Testament now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they are.
Which is awesome.
Testament, the new supergroup.
Yeah.
What is that? Anyway, that's
Alex Skolnick.
Yeah,
that's thrash
insane.
metal.
But
yeah, Death is just they're probably my favorite death metal band as well. And they're his favorite band of all time, which is awesome. Mine's still Black Sabbath always, and they invented death metal. But I think Death was kind of did for what Black Sabbath did to heavy metal in general and doom metal. Death definitely did for death metal. And people like Chuck Schuldiner, Jeff Becerra, even Cam Lee,
for sure.
From Massacre, and Mantis. He was actually in the band with Chuck Schuldiner. They're a pioneer. They kind of pioneered that vocal style,
the sound, the style,
and Chris Barnes too. And while I do prefer George Fisher's vocals to Chris Barnes, I think he's a little more diverse. He has a wider range. I definitely respect Chris Barnes' work. As I said, he was one of the pioneers. He was one of the first to do that, along with the others I mentioned, Jeff Becerra from Possessed. And he actually wrote his own lyrics, and it was more creative. I do think of the Barnes era as Cannibal Corpse as more when I think of Cannibal Corpse, I think of the Barnes era. They were more creative. The instrumentals was better. The lyrics were better. But I do think the songwriting's better. I do think George Fisher's technically a superior vocalist to Barnes, especially now. This work was 6 feet under.
Especially now.
But
Barnes era Cannibal Corpse was one of my favorite things of all time.
I agree. And they're huge.
Tomb of the Mutilated, Butchered at Birth. Those are 2 of my favorite albums of all time.
I even like The Bleeding.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a good album too.
Stripped, Raped, and Strangled. They think they know who I am. The way it starts out.
I love it.
That was my ringtone for years on my phone, and it just gets me pumped every time.
Absolutely. And then from going back to Death, you had legendary band Spawn from members
Most
of
definitely,
Death.
yeah.
You had Cam Lee going to Massacre.
Chris Refair going to Autopsy.
Autopsy.
He played drums on Scream Bloody Gore.
Let's just talk about Autopsy.
Let's talk about Autopsy.
I saw Autopsy live, I guess last month at Maryland Death Fest, and my God, That was the best performance I've ever seen in my life. Like Chris Refair comes out like the cool uncle. He's like, "Oh hey, what's up, guys?"
Such a great guy, great musician.
It was so chill, but so intense at the same time. They played so much from Severed Survival, which is my besides Leprosy, that's my favorite album of all time.
Good
besides
choice.
Leprosy,
I also like Mental Funeral, and I love their comeback album, Macabre Eternal. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
The Headless Ritual was really good too, but I thought that Tourniquets, Hacksaws, and Graves, which came after, was even better. But Macabre Eternal, I think, is my favorite of the newer albums.
Yeah, I think the newest one, Skull Grinder, is my favorite of the newest albums.
I haven't heard much from that one yet, but I definitely am very pumped to check it out.
It starts out with Strung Up and Gutted, which
Hell yeah.
live, that song was so good.
I have heard that song.
And it's called Strung Up and Gutted.
Yeah,
like,
you
what's
can't go
more
wrong with
death
that.
metal than a song called Strung Up and Gutted?
Yeah, and
nothing. Literally
yeah,
nothing.
and they had
That's the
very
answer.
they had very like similar lyrics to Cannibal Corpse. Like it was gory, graphic, brutal. Like songs like "Charred Remains," "Gasping for Air,"
Service for a Vacant Coffin has some really good
yeah,
lyrics.
and "The Grip of Winter." I love Severed Survival. I love Mental Funeral.
Yeah.
Eric Cutler and Danny Corrales. Along with Chuck Schuldiner, Trey Stigtho, Pat O'Brien, Jack Owen, they were they are some of the greatest death metal guitarists ever. Their riffs are so creative. I mean, I think they do, like they're like the Tony Iommi of death metal. Those riffs are so awesome, so creative. My gosh, what was it, Seeds of the Doomed from Macabre Eternal? I think that's the name of that song. What an awesome riff. The way it starts out, it just gets faster and faster and heavier and louder. It just gets me so pumped every time. And then Chris Refair, great death metal vocals, great grunts, great drummer. However, my favorite death metal drummer is actually Pete Sandoval from Morbid Angel.
Oh, yeah.
He is friggin' amazing.
Okay,
he's like the Dave Lombardo of death metal.
I would agree.
So fast, so precise.
I think my favorite drummer in death metal would have to be George Callias. I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
Good choice.
From Nile. I love his drum style. He has that swivel technique.
Amazing.
And his drum set's as long as the Nile, so I mean, it's ridiculous. The guy has 800 toms, 76,000 cymbals, but he uses them all. They're not going to waste.
That's a hell of a set that he's got.
Yeah, it's insanity.
It's a hell of a drum kit.
Absolutely. Something you mentioned. Well, person mentioned Trey. What are your
Trey
opinions on
from Morbid Angel
on the upcoming Morbid Angel album?
Well, they got Steve Tucker back. The last album, Elude Divinum Insanus,
it wasn't good.
Wasn't that good? It was too experimental. It didn't sound like Morbid Angel. I was thrilled they got David Vincent back, but I think his time with the band is done. I love Altars of Madness. I love Blessed Are the Sick. I love Covenant. Domination had some good songs, but overall, it's not one of my favorites.
The first 3 albums are really the key.
Yeah,
to that.
and I love Entangled in Chaos. I mean, that's a live album. I love Gateways to Annihilation.
Yeah.
That's my favorite Steve Tucker album.
Same.
And if this new album sounds anything like that, I'll be pleased.
They actually played a new song live. I don't know if you listened to it. It's really good, actually.
I'll have to check it out.
It's pretty fantastic. I'm really, really glad that they got Steve Tucker back in the band.
Me too.
Really glad.
He was a great replacement for Vincent.
David Vincent became a Nikki Sixx wannabe.
Yeah.
And that was weird, and I don't know how I feel about that.
He dresses
I do. I don't like it. But it's weird, and I'm not a fan. And Steve Tucker's back, and it seems like they're playing real death metal again. I'm pretty excited. I will reserve judgment. Until the album comes out and give it a full few listens through. I'm not sure even when it comes out, but when it does, I assure you I'll be listening to it multiple times just to kind of get a good opinion of it. I hope it's good, man.
I guess it'll
really
start with a
want it to be
K,
good.
going with their alphabetical names. Because they already did a live album called Juvenilia, which is actually an older live recording. So they already did their J album. Yeah. Every album's A, B, C, D. That's in the alphabetical.
Except for the 2 A albums.
Well, yeah, because Abominations of Desolation, but that was kind of they had Mike Browning on drums and vocals, and that was before Pete Sandoval was in the band. That was before he had Dave Vincent.
Yeah.
I think Richard Burnell was still there. He was kicked out of the band because he slept with Trey Stigtho's girlfriend or something.
Something along those lines.
Yeah. But I know this new album will be better than Elude Divinum Insanus, which was the Saint Anger of death metal.
There's not much of an option.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to not be better than that album, if I'm being completely honest.
I feel like I could do better than that.
That's not a very good album in any respect.
I didn't think
redeeming qualities.
Oh, definitely. I didn't think Heretic was that good though. I didn't like the production. Yeah. And Shine by Grace is a great song. Steve Tucker, his
Well, Sean
bass
McGrath's
playing and his
awesome.
vocals are great.
I forgot
Trey
that song even
Siguther is great.
existed.
Yeah,
Wow,
it's a good
okay.
song.
That is a good song.
Trey Siguther, his Lovecraftian, awesomely creative riffs are just a huge part of what makes Morbid Angel great. And I hate that Pete Sandoval isn't in the band anymore because his drumming was a huge part of what made them so great for me.
But Tim Young.
Yeah. Well, he's not in the band anymore either.
I know.
Neither is
that's
Destructhor.
No.
Destructhor.
It's okay. I think this album's going to be good. I hope this album's going to be good. We will find out when it comes out, I guess.
Can't wait.
But, yeah, man, there's so much good stuff. And there's so much good death metal coming out right now as well. You have bands like Gruesome, which is basically like... Gruesome is essentially like death, but now. It's really cool. Like, they have a very old-school death sound, like Scream Bloody Gore.
Yeah.
Leprosy-style death sound. Really, really cool. They just put out I think it was either a single or an EP. I think it was a single called Fragments of the Psyche. And that was a very human, individual thought patterns-esque style, like, death thing. Mm-hmm. I loved it. It really good. I would say check out Gruesome if you haven't.
Oh, yeah.
Another new death metal band I really, really love is called Black Breath. They're actually from either Oregon or Washington State, somewhere up in, like, the Pacific Northwest. And they sound like they're from Sweden. I love it. It really it has an old school Entombed vibe. They use the HM2s. Yeah, they use the old Boss HM2 pedals. That chainsaw guitar tone. They have that. They are killing it. Black Breath is an incredible band. And then you have a lot of death metal right now. It's more of like a mixed subgenres. Like
it's technical.
We have a lot of technical death metal, a lot of brutal death metal. I'm not really a brutal death metal guy.
Yeah.
Technical death metal doesn't really do it for me either. Some of the earlier stuff, like Gore Guts Obscura,
yes,
I like that.
Love Gore Guts.
But beyond that, I'm not too big of a fan. But you have a lot of really good stuff in the way of like, oh yeah, I love Grave. But you got a lot of really good stuff in the way of like blackened death metal and things like that.
Like Belphegor, Behemoth.
Belphegor, Behemoth is killing it. Apparently Behemoth is about to start doing some new stuff, so I'm pretty hyped about that. The Satanists, their last album, is probably one of my favorites of all time. So I'm excited to hear what they're going to do next. Absolutely.
What did you think of Obituary's newest album?
I liked it. I definitely liked it. It was a big improvement from the one before. What was that album called?
Was it Executioner's Return, or was that the one before?
That was the one before.
Yeah, Darkest
It was
Day.
the one with the dude's torso. All it was, the album cover was just the dude's torso.
Inked in Blood? Is that what it's called?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Don't quote me on that, because I might be wrong.
But
I haven't kept up with it too much.
My problem with that album were the triggers on the drums. It is, the drums are so over triggered. It literally sounds like he has his drumsticks, right, hitting a paper plate. And it's really frail, and I don't like it. Way worse. It's bad. It's real bad. But their new album, they corrected that. The drums sound great. The guitars sound great. The songwriting is on point. It's what you come to expect from Obituary, that redneck death metal.
Yeah, can't go wrong with Obituary. Redneck stomp.
It's really good. Really good. I would say check that out. Goat Whore. Goat Whore's been killing it. They just put their new album. I think it's Vengeful Ascension.
I'll have to check that out.
It's awesome. It's like, it feels to me like they kind of took what they've been doing and like went back a bit in terms of production and like just the rawness of it, which I don't think is a bad thing. Their past few albums have been some of my favorite. I think Blood for the Master is probably my favorite album they've ever done. But this new album is really, really cool. And it's actually on the Billboard charts. I don't know how that happened, but that's a thing. But it's a really good album. I've only got to listen to it like 2 or 3 times over, so I plan on really delving into it soon. I might do a review on it actually. I'm thinking about doing a review on it.
You absolutely should.
Over on my channel, we will see if that happens. I guess just stay tuned.
Gutts.
Yeah, if you're not subscribed to me, it's Dr. Gutts. I usually am in the comments somewhere around here. The description, we'll put it somewhere. Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah.
Well, about Obituary, Slowly We Rot and Cause of Death are like 2 of the most incredible things I've ever heard. And the thing is about John Tardy, their vocalist, he looks like an evil D. Snyder. And a lot of times he doesn't sing actual lyrics. He just kind of goes, "Ugh," and grunts. Like, if you read their lyrics, it's kind of just like, kill, death, destroy, murder. Like, it's not really a coherent storyline or anything.
That's their new song, Kill, Death, Destroy,
pretty
Murder.
much. Yeah, and torture. And, like, I didn't care for that at first, but it really grew on me. And now he's one of my
I
favorite
love him,
death metal vocalists. He's awesome. His style is kind of similar to John Tardy. He sounds like, who is it that he sounds like? He kind of sounds like Jeff Becerra from Possessed, I think. A little bit.
Yeah.
There's somebody else. There was somebody else that he sounded a lot like. I can't think of it right now. And Chris Fair has kind of a similar vocal style too from Autopsy. Me too. Yeah. But yeah, my favorite death metal vocalist is George Fisher. I realized Chris Barnes was more important to the band, but George Fisher, and I also really like Glenn Benton from Deicide. I know everybody hates him because of the way he is as a person, but I don't care. The way he can shift through those deep, demonic, guttural growls, and then those high-pitched shrieks, those high registers, he does it with such precision and such ease that it's awesome. I love Deicide. I loved when they had the Hoffman brothers on guitar.
Yeah.
But now they have Jack Owen from Cannibal Corpse, which is good. I think he's still in the band. And Steve Ashheim's one of my favorite drummers. Great songwriter, too. He writes all the songs. Benton writes the lyrics. I think Ashheim writes all the music. Yeah. I love Deicide. I think they're underrated. And I know they're not as good as they once were. We had Deicide, the Self Side. We had Legion. We had Once Upon the Cross. Once Upon the fucking Cross.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so
But I even
good.
like Stench of Redemption and Scars of the Crucifix. I think they were good. Yeah.
I think here's my main problem. I do like Glenn Benton. I do like Deicide. I will say that first. I like them a lot, especially their old stuff.
His vocals aren't what they once were.
My main problem with his vocals, I think he does himself a massive disservice with how much he layers his vocals.
I agree.
I agree. 900 vocal tracks per song.
Exactly.
Which is unnecessary when you're that good of a vocal.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't need to do that. He didn't do that in the early
stuff, right?
Yeah,
it was more raw.
Yeah.
A couple of
pretty
vocal
good
tracks,
bassist
nothing
too.
crazy.
Nothing,
absolutely.
But not as good as Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse, but
not many people are.
Not many people are.
Steve DiGiorgio and maybe a handful of others, but Alex Webster's kind of a monster.
Oh god, he's definitely my favorite death metal bassist.
But yeah, I think Glenn Benton does himself a disservice with all the layering. I don't really think it's necessary.
We need to talk about Carcass.
Oh,
we need to talk about Symphonies of Cygnus.
Yes, we do.
Necroticism.
And what they did for melodic death
Putrefaction.
metal, like with Heartwork, like they really brought that subgenre to be a thing.
Song.
And then
sorry.
And then from there, we had bands come up that are also huge bands, like At the Gates.
Yes.
You had In Flames' first couple albums.
Yeah.
Jester Ace was phenomenal. Stop there.
Yeah, stop there. After that, you're done. You don't need to hear
but so much cool stuff spawned just from the things that Carcass have done.
Oh yeah, they were very influential.
Oh,
On the grindcore,
band,
I've never been really big into grindcore aside from Napalm Death, and if Carcass even counts as grindcore.
Repulsion.
Yeah, they were very influential on the grindcore genre, which I can definitely respect. Even though, again, not really a huge fan there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Carcass. I love Bill Steer's guitar playing. I love the fact that he used to share vocal duties with Jeff Walker. Is that his name? Jeff Walker? The bassist / vocalist?
Possibly.
Yeah. If I got that wrong, I apologize.
Apologize to you, John Abraham.
Yeah, and then Ken Owen, the drummer. I love how they all shared vocal duties. Jeff Walker, the bassist, was kind of the high-pitched screeches. Bill Steer was more the low grunts and gutturals. Yeah. I love that. And then Ken Owen kind of made background noises, here and there. Yeah. And I loved how they did that. I hate that they don't sing as a duet anymore. I understand Bill Steer does sing on the Surgical Steel.
I saw them on the Surgical Steel tour. It was those two are still there, but the band they put around them, I don't know their names. I'm just gonna pause right there. But the other guitar player and the new drummer, they're both younger guys, and they were touring with them. I saw them. It was with Gore Guts and Black Dahlia. It was an incredible show. Carcass killed it.
I'm not a big fan of Black Dahlia Murder.
I wasn't at first, because I used to clump them in with deathcore, which I'm not a fan of. But I realized how unfair that was, because they are a straight up melodic death metal band. And I think they're actually a really good band. I've seen them live about 4 times now. And they're one of those bands that you have to see live. If you see them live, it kind of makes the whole thing, you get it. The dude, they are phenomenal. Every time I see them, they get better, and they get more mellow death. They are very melodic death metal. And I think they get wrongly clumped in with.
Yeah, I kind of figured I was being a little unfair.
Yeah, well,
too judgmental.
I was too. I 100% was the exact same way. But I would
give
say,
them a second chance.
yeah, I would say check them out with a different light. Like look at them through a different scope, and they're actually a really good band. When they opened up for Carcass, like it was so good. They actually, it was like the show was Gorguts, then Black Dahlia, then Carcass. Which I guess
it's not bad.
Which I guess like historically Gorguts could have been like after. But, like, I guess monetarily it makes more sense because Black Dahlia is a bigger pull, ticket-wise, than Gorguts would be. So I guess that makes sense. And that show was so good. But when I saw them live, Bill Steer actually did vocals as well.
Excellent, good.
And it was
and they
really
played the older songs?
Yes, they did.
Good.
The only thing that kind of sucked was Ruptured Impurulence and Rika Putrefaction. They didn't play the full songs of. They played like medleys of them.
Oh yeah, that's what Metallica does with their older songs.
Which it was still really cool. It was still really cool, but it wasn't. I wanted the whole thing. I was like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Right when you hear all the intros of both those songs, I was
still
ready.
a hell of a show.
It was incredible, but no, they killed it. It was really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
But as I mentioned before, they spawned stuff like At the Gates. Let's talk about At the Gates because I love At the Gates. Like they've done so many incredible things.
Kind of underrated
in the world of melodic death metal. Like you have like The Red in the Sky Is Ours, Slaughter of the Soul, obviously. Their newest album, At War with Reality, is insane. And then actually you have a few members of At the Gates, or maybe one or two, I don't remember how many, but a few members of At the Gates and members of some other death metal bands actually have gotten together now and formed another group called the Lurking Fear.
Supergroup?
A semi-supergroup type deal, where they're doing a more raw, old-school death metal thing instead of a metal-death thing. It's really good. They have 2 songs out. As of this video, they have 2 songs out, and they are both insane. I would say check them out. I am ready for an album. I am pumped for an album. And the name The Lurking Fear, that is a cool name for a band.
Yeah,
that's a really cool name for a band.
Well, I really like Immolation. Ross Dolan is one of my favorite death metal vocalists. He's one of the more indecipherable ones. Like you can't really understand what he's saying a lot of times. Yeah, but I love Dawn of Possession. I love Here and After. He plays bass too. A great bassist.
Did I tell you what happened with my Dawn of Possession album?
Yes, you did. It's very tragic. Man. Yeah, what somebody spilled something on it?
No, it was
stepped on it.
So I was in Tennessee. And I got Dawn Possession. If you all have this album or have held the album, it's in a paper case, which I like paper cases more than I like plastic cases. This is my preference. I think they're cooler. They get more of an atmosphere type deal, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, in a paper case, we were traveling back, and all of our luggage was on top of the roof. And like, and like, you know, like people have those, there's pods or whatever they are on top of their car when they were traveling. We had one of those. But instead of being like a sweet plastic one, it was cloth.
Oh, God.
I don't know why. And it started pouring rain so hard the entire way back from Tennessee.
Terrible.
Like hours and hours of driving. Pouring rain, right? Didn't think about it. I pull my bag out. I go to pick up the Immolation album as it dissolves over my hand.
No.
And I'm just holding the disc. Like,
that is a drag.
Oh, no.
That is a drag.
So the disc is in perfect condition. I can still listen to it.
The disc.
But the case is completely ruined. I need to get a new
too.
case. Yeah, and the cover is so cool.
Yeah,
and it got
Angels,
ruined on me. Have you heard Atonement, their new album?
Yes.
Really good.
Very good stuff.
Return to form, really.
Definitely.
That's how I look at it, at least. It feels like
I just love the song Nailed to Gold for some reason. Like, I just love the way Ross Dolan does that. Cryptopsy. We haven't talked about Cryptopsy
I was
yet.
literally, when you were talking
Great
about...
minds think alike.
When you were talking about how discernible vocals...
Yeah,
Lord I was like, Worm. Oh, Lord Worm, you mean.
Lord Worm,
because
you cannot understand what that man is saying.
There isn't words.
Open-face surgery. What the hell is he saying? I love that scream, though. I love that
Was it 27 seconds, I think? 27 seconds.
Wow.
Straight.
Wow.
What? Well, how do you do that? But there's a song on, I think it's the last song on that album, and it's called Pathological Frolic.
Blasphemy Made Flesh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's called a Pathological Frolic, right?
Oh, yeah.
And apparently the lyrics say something like, who is this Jeffrey? Where is this Jeffrey? Somebody's mother's underwear or something like that, right? But the whole song is, he's just, blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
The whole song?
It's awesome.
There's 0 words.
I
I am 100% convinced that he just made noise in the studio and like, what were you saying? He's like, oh, this.
Yeah.
That's not a word.
He could be
there was
singing
no
about
word
Care
there.
Bears and you wouldn't even know it.
But like he's like an English professor now.
Yeah, I know.
Like
He's a teacher.
What?
None So Vile is a great album too.
Oh, I love it. So
After
much.
Blasphemy Made Flesh and None So Vile, you're done. They got different vocalists. Lord Worm left. He came back for what was it? Once Was Not or The Unspoken King. One of those. He came back and it wasn't good because
it was bad.
Flo Monier, the drummer, he is the Lars Ulrich of death metal, and he's the worst. I mean, he's always been with the band, but he's like the biggest enemy of Cryptopsy. He's the reason why they suck so bad. Yeah, he really.
And they're a deathcore band now, which is rough.
Oh God.
But the
How the mighty have fallen.
But the first 2 albums, A Blasphemy Made Flesh and None So Vile, are 2 of the most pure death metal releases you could ever dream of listening to.
Yeah.
I think after None So Vile has Slit Your Guts on it.
Slit Your Guts,
which is
great song. Great song.
One of my top death metal songs
Brutal,
of all
very
time.
brutal.
It's so heavy.
It is.
I don't even know how you write a song that heavy, but they pulled it off.
Yeah.
And it really worked, and I love early Cryptopsy.
Oh, me too. Yeah, they're incredible. They were incredible, I should say.
Imagine like walking into a classroom like Lord Worm's your professor, like a little tie on, it's like Professor Worm. Oh,
Professor. That'd be so. I would love to learn from him.
He's no longer a Lord Worm. He's now Professor Worm.
Professor Worm. Oh man, I would love to do those assignments.
Like, what do you think they're like in his class, though? You know, like write some really disgusting. That would be
lyrics.
So
awesome. Yeah. Who can write the grossest, most gruesome, most graphic story or whatever?
But yeah, so I think that was a pretty good discussion on death metal.
But yeah, I didn't like when John Levasseur left Cryptopsy either. He wasn't that album where Lord Worm returned. He wasn't on that album. But even if he had, I don't think that would have been enough to save it. Cryptopsy was just doomed.
At that point, they were already, in my opinion, done.
But sorry, you were. I think you were outro.
Yeah, just wrapping up a bit.
We're past the 30-minute mark.
Yeah, past the 30-minute mark. I definitely want to do more videos like this. If you guys enjoyed just a kind of a
general death metal discussion,
off the cuff, just laid back discussion on
unscripted,
things, let us know. Let us know in the comments below. Again, we're going to do a Q&A as well. Make sure you leave questions down there for us. And until next time, I've been Dr. Gutts.
And I'm Hellhound.
This has been Into the Pit.
And we forgot to talk about Suffocation. Soul to Deny is a great album.
If you just forgotten.
Yeah, I just had to. Frank Mullen is a great vocalist, great death metal vocalist, and I couldn't end the video without mentioning Suffocation. So sorry about that. I think we name dropped just about every great death metal band. If we didn't, we apologize. I think we got to just about.
Let's think. 1 second. Hold on. Wait for it.
Let's see. Death, Possessed, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, Deicide, Suffocation.
We said
Autopsy,
Grave once.
Immolation, we said Grave.
Okay,
we name dropped Grave.
That was there.
Oh god, I know we're forgetting somebody.
We're forgetting a lot. 100%.
Yeah, we are.
It's cool though.
Gore Guts, we mentioned Gore Guts.
We briefly mentioned Gore Guts.
Yeah.
Considered Dead, one of the best albums of all time.
Yeah.
No?
Oh god, yeah. I think we...
This has been Into the Pit. Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you.
Keep it metal. Drop a like down below. Again, comment.
And a Q&A. Let us know any questions you might have, and that'll be a future video. So I just want to reiterate that.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. Keep it heavy.